So I'm going to try to make a better video here on how to install Arch Linux on a MacBook. First thing you're going to want to check are general resources about it. So actually, first you want to check hardware compatibility. So I will put a link in the description here. I'll put this in the description, this text, and a link there. Also, the Wi-Fi drivers, there's a link for that. That's a bit overkill, I think. You can, yeah, but you probably do want to check it. And yeah, so checking hardware compatibility will be the first thing. Then, so a little out of order here, but then you got your general resources. Main one is going to be Arch installation on MacBooks. There's a page in the wiki on that with a lot of links. I used a medium.com article that was kind of a guide, but there are some changes because I did a dual boot installation so that I can still use macOS. I would recommend that, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'll probably put a link, either I might make my own guide and put it up on a website or something. Okay, but yeah, the best resource I found was this medium.com article, but only problem is it's not for the dual boot. So anyway, so yeah, you need a plan for accessing the internet during your Arch installation. Basically, the Broadcom drivers, which I believe, I'm not sure, I think all MacBooks have this Broadcom chip for the Wi-Fi. Those drivers are proprietary. They're not provided in open source, and so you're gonna need a plan here. So what I did is I purchased a Ethernet to USB adapter, which worked fine. It cost like $10. That's kind of good to have anyway. Anytime you want to access Ethernet. Okay, so there are other ideas like if you have an Android phone, you should be able to tether it. I tried with an iPhone, but it didn't work. Maybe there's a way to get that to work. But you will need internet during your Arch installation. Okay, so now we get into actually making things happen. So you probably want to back up your system in case something goes wrong. If you make a mistake when you're partitioning, you will wipe out your, you will erase your disk. So make sure that you back up and be very careful when you are partitioning. I recommend doing a clean install of macOS. Basically, I would get all of my personal data that I care about, so photos, videos, whatever, get that on an external drive. You can also do the Time Machine thing. So I don't want to get too into it, but I don't like Time Machine because it will take up, like let's say you give it a 4 terabyte storage drive. It will take up everything. Just making sort of snapshots of your whole system and then just filling it with that. And then it will, yeah, keep doing that. It'll also kind of do that in the background, which will make your system very busy all of a sudden. And so personally, I don't like, you can do that, just give it a little space to do maybe one snapshot, but personally I would rather not back up the whole system, which can kind of get a lot of junk on it. Who knows, maybe you got viruses. I would rather just back up my personal data and then do a clean install. The clean install, so that's going to, for most people, I think this is going to free up a lot of hard drive space or storage space, whatever, disk space. And so I definitely recommend it. And also, you know, getting the latest, if your system's not already up to date. So you're going to want to, if you're going to do that, you'll want to search how to do it on the web. You know, you want to download the latest operating system for macOS, and then make a USB stick and installer, so you can figure out how to do that. So once you have the clean install, it feels really nice, and you can go in there, and then you can start partitioning for your. This could be for any Linux distribution. In this case, we're doing Arch, but I used the disk utility in Mac, on the Mac OS. There might have been other ways to do this. I figured this was the way that is the most friendly with the the Mac OS operating system. I was a little afraid if I just did things. Let's say I booted into the Arch installation USB drive, and then I started partitioning things from there. I was a little afraid that the Mac OS wouldn't really like that when it boots up, but I'm not an expert on that stuff. But anyway, I did it through Mac OS. Sometimes you try to do this and it doesn't work for some reason, but if you keep trying it, it should work. I made 4 partitions. Some people do only, they don't make a separate root partition and home partition, but the logic, the reason for doing a separate home partition is it could make it easier to switch Linux distributions later if you want to do so. You probably want to swap partition. I like having lots of swap. I have like 20 gigabytes of it, but you can check how much is recommended. Some people say no swap if you have, say, 16 gigabytes of RAM. I definitely disagree. But I use a lot of tabs and browsers that takes up a lot of memory. Once you get used to this stuff, you'll have like, oops, this is gonna look weird, but if you use, I don't know if you use HTOP, but I'd recommend it. You can check stuff. So right now I'm using, on this machine I have almost 8 gigs of RAM, and so if I went over, it would start using the swap partition. Anyway, yeah, maybe 16 gigabytes, maybe you don't really need it, but also if you're, I'm not sure about this, but if you're gonna want to hibernate your computer or suspend it, I think that you're gonna want swap space for that. So yeah, you can research it. I personally, I've got half a terabyte of storage on here, so giving it 20 gigabytes of swap space is not a big deal to me. Okay, I think boot was 2 gigabytes, so I'll have to double check. I think that's fine. Your root and home, that will depend on what you want for that. Okay, and then you make the USB installation drive. The way you're going to do this, you're going to download the ISO. That's just a, I think it's from like the CD-ROM days. This is just a disk image, and then you're going to install that. Just check how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. You probably want to verify that your ISO is correct by doing a checksum. So I'll just I believe you can do this in Mac OS, but you're going to want to do something like md5 sum, and then the name, whatever the name of the file is, arch installation.iso, whatever it is, and that'll give you a checksum. You can just Google that, do a web search of that checksum directly, and probably something will come up. Or you can do a web search of Arch ISO checksums, and there should be stuff. I believe that, yeah, macOS does have this MD5 sum there. So that's how you verify your installation. You probably want to do that. I have in the past downloaded installations of operating systems that the checksum did not check out correctly, so maybe there was a mistake along the way, or maybe someone along the way tried to maliciously do a packet injection. I don't know, but I think it's better safe than sorry. It doesn't take much time to verify it, and then you're going to need to write that to a USB drive. Again, just do a web search. This is just kind of a general overview of what you need to do. You are going to shut down your system and reboot it with the Arch installation USB inserted into your computer. Then you need to get access to the internet, and this is where I was talking about before. You need a plan for this. But if you use the medium.com my voice just cracked there. If you use this article that I'm going to post a link to, then you can follow the instructions there, as long as you have physical access to it, if you've plugged in via Ethernet. If you're going to try to do some kind of tethering with a mobile device, then I would search how to do that. because I wasn't able to do that personally. Then, so once you have access to the internet, you're going to follow the normal install instructions. Probably the Arch wiki is good enough for this, but the medium.com article that I'm going to post a link to had more detailed information. Well, it's more noob friendly, I'll put it that way. The Arch wiki also has lots of information, so probably want to refer to both. You probably want to read over the Arch wiki there anyway, and before you're doing all this, to just get a sense of what you're getting into. So you install it. The installation doesn't take that long. What to do after? So one thing, first off, the package manager. In the IRC, the Arch Linux IRC, it was recommended to me that you don't use a package manager. I'm not sure about how all that works, if it's recommended or not. I guess I'm a noob because it's just easier to use it. If I were an elite programmer, probably maybe I wouldn't use it, but so the package manager is yay. That's YAY. You'll see some stuff, including this medium.com article, is outdated. They talk about Yowert. Nobody uses Yowert anymore, so don't use Yowert. Use yay if you're going to do that. Of course, the official package manager is called Pacman. That's what you'll be doing, using to install Arch Linux. But if you want other stuff that's not part of the official packages, then you'll probably use a package manager like EA. And those unofficial packages are called the AUR. What is it? Arch User Repository. By the way, you can go on the website, and maybe I'll show this at the end of the video, but you can search packages there. You can also search them. I'll just show you right here how to search for packages. So both Pacman and Yay. So I'll do Pacman. Here's how you're gonna. Normally you install stuff with -s, okay, and then the package name. If you want to search for something, I'll just search for a font here, and a bunch of stuff comes up. And so let's see here. Okay, let's do it in Yay as well. Yay, search, font. Do this full screen. Hopefully that's coming out on the video there. It's taking a while. There's probably a lot of results. Okay, so this is kind of, the order here is important. All right, so you have your sort of official packages will come out last here. And then so this extra repository and the community repository, those are kind of, I believe, officially curated. Okay, but then and then also the multi-lib. And so multi-lib, by the way, will only show up if you modify your configuration file for Pacman. Generally, when you install stuff on Arch Linux, you often want to go to do a web search for Arch Linux and then the name, and then, for example, Steam. If you're going to install Steam, that might be in the multi-lib, and so you'll see instructions there. So you often want to do that, especially if you try to make something work and it doesn't work. That's the first thing you want to do. I mean, you either want to search directly on the Arch Linux wiki page for it, or you want to update your system and then try again. And so AUR comes up last here, and the order here is important too. You got these pluses, okay? So this was highly recommended, and it goes kind of in reverse order there. Okay, so I just wanted to show that. There's another thing. So you might want to search. Sometimes you're going to want to know what you've already have installed. This is not super obvious. I'll show you what I do. I think it's not perfect, but this, or of course, same thing for Pacman. Okay, so if I do that for Pacman, here's stuff. I'm not going to show all of it, but it will kind of list it. Now, I don't think this is perfect for some reason, but I'm not sure why. I forget, but usually I use this. And so you can obviously use grep here, and if I'm questioning, do I have some kind of YouTube package installed? Well, I can do this with yay as well, and it shows me that I have these two packages installed. Okay, so that's the package. Oh crap, that's the package manager. Let me bring that up again here. Okay, yeah. Open. And so, then internet. This is not the most recent version. Recover. Okay. How to connect to the internet normally. So that's another thing you're going to want to think about. Let me talk about that last. You're going to want a desktop environment or a window manager, probably, if you like having a GUI. You're probably going to want fonts, and I have to think about, I called it resolution. That's not exactly the technical term, I don't think, but basically, right, the resolution, the size that everything comes out as. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But the webcam, so this may depend on what kind of drivers you have, but you can check this out online. But the normal face, what is it? The FaceTime HD camera that is installed in a MacBook. Basically, those are proprietary drivers, so they have these sort of reverse engineered drivers that they have that do not work well. The quality for me comes out very poorly. So in the past, what I would do is if I wanted to use the webcam for a video or something, I would use macOS. But my macOS one day stopped working very well, so I just decided to buy a webcam, and I use a Logitech, I forget, one of the recent models. It was like 80 to 100 bucks, and it's really easy to use. I just, I'll show you this one again. I should just leave this thing up because I keep using it. Hold on. Everything's going crazy. Alright. I just do MPV dev, which is for devices, video 0. In the past it's been video 1. It switched around on me, I don't know why. I do this and it works. So I might be able to get 2. I've never done this before, but no. I've already got it running, so. But that's what I do. Let's try 1. No. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this up now. So, okay, so yeah, I bought a webcam to use with Linux because that was the easier solution. Then, so for fonts and setting the resolution, that is going to be, it's often a headache, to be honest. I don't have an easy answer for this. I may put another video. Yeah, because I don't have an easy answer for this. It's not crazy difficult, okay, but it's a pain, and judging by what other people have said, also a lot of people think it's an irritating pain to get the fonts set up correctly. As for resolution, that's kind of also can be a bit complicated. So you have probably a Retina display, right? So after you install these things, you install your window manager or whatever, it's probably going to be really small. So let's see here. Let me see this. This is not what I wanted. This is my i3 config. This is my .x resources file. So in Linux, Linux for making Windows, it has this thing called, I think it's just called X. And so X, yeah, so you'll be installing this at some point. But this is my config file for it. And what's weird is you use exclamation point for commenting stuff. Also, so this URXVT stuff is particular to the a terminal emulator URXVT. I prefer the terminal emulator called Termite because stuff works out of the box better. For example, changing the size like this works better out of the box with Termite. So you can see here I have this xft.dpi92. So you can try playing around with this, and you're going to want to I actually was just rebooting the computer every time I do this. You don't need to do that. I think you can hold on. So on my system I do Command Shift E. I forget if I don't think that's the default, but you get this exit. This will end your X session, so you can exit and then you can restart it like that. Yeah, so you can play around with that, and then so you can see my status bar down here is really small. So the confusing thing is you got multiple things coming together. You've got this setting for your DPI, then you're gonna have your terminal emulator settings, and then you're gonna have your font size for your terminal emulator. But hopefully you can figure it out. Just play around with stuff a bit. And yeah, what kind of confused me, well, anyway, you can set fonts for whatever size. And if you're using Termite, the config file for Termite is in a totally different place. So you can search your system for where that is. That's beyond the scope of this video. And so yeah, I mean, it's not terribly difficult, but good luck with fonts and setting resolution. And then last thing I want to talk about is how to connect to the internet normally. A lot of people are going to want to use something called Network Manager. This will, for example, if you have two different networks in your home and you move from one network to the other, it will automatically switch them. I don't have anything that sophisticated. I use netctl, and netctl, yeah, it's not that bad, but so I'll just show you etc netctl. These are they're like configuration files for different networks, and you can go into examples, and generally probably going to use this wireless WPA config. So let me just wireless WPA-config. Let's take a look at this. Is this enough? I feel like this is not enough. You can edit this directly, or copy it and edit it directly. Let me check out just WPA here. Yeah, I think this is it. You can type in your key, all that stuff, but you know, it's easier to use I use the sudo Wi-Fi menu thing. So it will look like this. And okay, I only have one. This is basically just checking your local area for networks. You can type in your password there, and then what that will do is it will create a config here, and it will also try to connect. Then so I'll just briefly mention what I do. This is a pain, I guess. Yeah. If you're allergic to painful terminal stuff, then Arch Linux is not for you. Sudo IP link set. This is the name of your interface. So first, you're going to want to know your interface. IP link will show you that. This is the name of my Wi-Fi interface. So when I'm having trouble connecting to the internet, or I'm troubleshooting it, sudo IP link set my interface WP3S0 down. So I do that, and then I do netctl stop all. If you don't have anything running yet, you don't need to do this, but this is kind of just to yeah, if you're troubleshooting your internet, then you want to do this, and then so I can do netctl list, and it lists those configuration files we just saw. So if I want to connect to let's say the Hive 5G, I do netctl start the Hive 5G, and it will I'll need to type in a password, but I just do this because it's working fine for me. I mean, I like it that when I connect to my computer, when I boot up my computer, it's not originally connected to the internet. I have to tell it to connect to the internet, and I type in a password to do so. I don't know, just I guess for security, or I don't like this idea of just automatically connecting and stuff might be running in the background. That's what I do. So it does feel a little bit old school, but it's not a big deal. But yeah, a lot of people use this app called Network Manager that is going to give you something that is more like a normal PC way of connecting to the internet. Also, I just want to say it pops up in this status bar down here, although there might be some config stuff you have to do for getting the status bar. Well, this is i3 specific anyway, so it's kind of out of the scope of this video, but usually window managers will have some kind of status bar thing that you can set up. I think i3 is a good first window manager to try to get to work, and I think that Termite is a good first terminal emulator, because stuff will work better outside the box than URXVT. URXVT, or also known as RxVT Unicode, is another very common one. There's a handful of very common terminal emulators. They all generally do roughly the same thing, but yeah, kind of a big thing is how you configure it, and so and how you get some of the extra things like being able to make zoom in and zoom out, I guess, make it bigger, right? But at the end of the day, you'll probably end up with the same functionality. It's just a question of how much work did you have to do to get that functionality, usually, and how does playing with a config work for you. That's about it for this video. It went a little longer than I wanted to make it, but this is just a general overview of installing Arch Linux. I have a 50-minute video of this already, but I wanted to try to make a better one. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, and see ya.